Welcome to a live episode of An Echo of Glory. Sorry for the delayed kickoff. We were due to start at 11, but we're kicking off at 12. Team bus issues, like, who was it? Carabag the other week. We had to walk up the high street with our kit and our boots on. Joining me on this episode, Gary Diamond. Hello.
Good afternoon now.
Yeah, good afternoon. Afternoon kickoff. And a long-awaited welcome back. It's not Jake Robson, but it is even better, Ali Tweeder. Welcome back.
Thank you. Always nice to be called better than someone else being introduced. Thank you for having me.
There is rumours that Jake Robson's coming on on Monday.
I don't believe it.
I don't want to. I don't want to say anything that could be a lie. Straight in, Stratton Carlberg, vibes on point. Are we vibing?
I'm vibing after.
You're vibing?
I'll tell you, I'm vibing on Mikey Moore.
Oh, we're going there. I promise you.
Okay.
I promise you, we're going there on Mikey Moore. If you are watching, get involved in the comments. Always love it to hear from you, especially after a win, because we should probably be on the same page. Let's see if that happens. Right, where are we going to start? There isn't really any club news, is there?
I don't think so. No.
No.
Dive straight.
Everyone's fit.
Well, you say
no,
that.
Really
well.
news. Yeah.
We did hear. Well, Jake Sanders said, I've not seen it, but you saw the quote that apparently Son is not available or very unlikely to be
I
available.
managed to forget that in the 20 minutes since I read it. It was written out of my mind. Son's out of Sunday, I think, more or less. Doesn't sound like it's too serious, just because Ange said he won't play on Sunday. He usually says, it looks like a nasty one, doesn't he? He's quite honest, I think, often. So hopefully back for City.
I thought that his comments, we knew that he'd be rested for Alkmaar, but I thought that would mean he'd be back tomorrow.
Yeah, me too.
But it opens up a discussion point, which we will come to. And I'm sorry to a certain German, but I don't think you're going to play. Just trying to find the match report to give out the lineup. So the lineup, we'll go straight into last night. 9 changes, only Udogie and Maddison also started West Ham. Big Fraser in goal. I wasn't sure pre-kick-off, but actually he did okay. Made a weird save at one point with his wrong hand, but who am I to criticise? Gray, Dragusin, Davies, Udogie, and then Bergval, or Byval, Bentancur, Maddison, Moore, Mikey Moore, sorry. Who's
Mikey
Moore?
Who is Moore?
Mikey Moore, Richarlison, and Timo Werner. This is our Europa League team. Are we happy with that?
Fine, yeah. Well, it's not, because it was Fraser Forster's first Europa League appearance.
Oh, yeah, because he'd played against Coventry. That was it.
Yeah. I am of the opinion that Fraser Forster is the worst backup keeper in the Premier League.
Wow.
I think whenever anyone at the club talks about him, they're always like, he's such a lovely bloke. He's everyone's best mate.
Okay.
Brilliant. He's not a second choice. God, he's too old. He's so I'm not confident in him. But clean sheet.
Yep.
Otherwise, yeah.
Sorry, frog in my throat. The one that still Udogie needs minutes. I think because he's still catching up. I think from the injury last season, but he's being forced to play really because of the Spence situation. But were there any other surprises in the team for you?
No, I don't think so. I think on the way up in the car with my daughter, we were chatting to my dad, and we basically called that team pretty much because ultimately, I think we were saying last season that the problem without having Europa League or Champions League or European football, or even Conference League, is it's very hard to give minutes to the other players. And whilst we want to be taking the Europa League as seriously as we should, and it's a competition we should be going all in on and trying to win, at this stage of the tournament, it's absolutely a fantastic opportunity to give these kids minutes and get them playing as a team. And look, yes, we beat Karabakh 3-0. It wasn't as comfortable as that on the night. We got past Ferencváros 2-1. That's a great learning experience for those kids. And last night was also a bit of an uncomfortable night. If we go out and play our full team, we probably steamroller these teams 4-5 in each game, and it's a bit of a farce and a joke. And that's not a comment on the drop off to what comes after the first team, because ultimately when we've tried this in the past, we've lost these games.
Yeah.
So it's actually a comment on how far our squad has come. But it is vitally important that if we're going to go deep in the Europa League, if we're going to push for the Premier League, these guys that started last night need to get these minutes and need to be ready to come in and also take their opportunity, as one in particular absolutely did.
Do you think we've got the balance right? I was at work last night, so I wasn't there, but I was watching it. And it's a bit of a name drop, but not massive. Talking to Don Hutchinson.
There's a name drop, go on.
Yeah, pick that up off
Is
the floor. A little bit. Paul Scholes was there too, but we weren't talking to him about it. And he was talking about Chelsea at the time. We were watching the Chelsea game because they were the earlier kickoff, and we were talking about their squad and how it's very difficult as a professional footballer to play in a match when you know you're not playing in the next one. You look at United. I think this is to save Ten Hag's job. He's basically picking their first team. They probably had a harder start to the Europa League than we have. Twente, Porto away, and
Galatasaray,
Fenerbahce away.
Fenerbahce,
yeah.
Sorry,
so we've kind of got this balance where actually we've got players playing that probably know they're not going to start next week, but actually they're okay with that. Maybe someone like Dragicin wants to play more, but most of these players are young and they realise they're not yet going to start Premier League games. So actually, it's better than the ones we used to pick. I will keep going back to that Pacos Ferreira game. It just sticks in my head as one of the worst Spurs performances of all time. For the players that really couldn't really care less. And looking at this team now, I feel we've got that balance quite right.
Yeah. Also, the Europa League's longer now, so there's 5 more group stage games, and if they win the next 2, that almost guarantees place in the knockout round already.
I think 16 points rather
I
than
reckon
15.
14
Well,
could
yeah,
do it.
that's
You
good.
really reckon?
As good as, yeah. So the point is that then the final 2 games, whoever they're against, however tough they are, the second string will play, and that is getting them up to like a good amount of games. There's also the cups as well.
Well, just jumping ahead, Ali.
Yeah.
We talked about it off air. We're not going to go too deep on the Man City game. We said we might play the Europa League team.
Yeah, I'd go full strength.
You'd go full strength.
Yeah. I just think in the Europa League, we're playing the Europa League team in this stage of the Europa League. But if the first knockout round was next week and you got drawn against Porto, you'd play the full. Do
you think this is a team that will travel to Galatasaray, which is a different vibe? Talking of vibes, that's a different
probably
vibe.
Probably depends on. Is that the next one? Is that the next game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably will be the team that played last night.
It's a good learning curve for them, for sure.
Massive. Yeah. But I mean, that is a tough game. Maybe it will be slightly stronger. I think in the biggest games, in the hardest games, you play stronger team, and like the players that they're getting rests midweek at the moment, and so playing the odd midweek game shouldn't be too much for them to play like back to back. In the Champions League, Arsenal are doing that, City are doing that, Liverpool are doing that with their strongest teams. You should be able to do that. They're doing that every week at the moment. We should be able to do it every once in a while.
I just think on that, you spoke about United's start to the Europa League campaign and why they played their strongest team. And sure, on paper, that is a tougher start than we have had. Our next 3 games are their first 3, when you think about it, in the sense of Galatasaray away, Roma at home, and then Rangers away. That is a tough run of 3 games. Yeah. But I absolutely advocate not for bringing the first team back, but going to Galatasaray, I'd play the exact same team as last night, except I would take Davies out and be putting Van der Ven in. Galatasaray, I watched them against Elfsborg, who's our last home game, so went out my way to watch that game just to do a bit of scouting on both teams. I can tell you, Elfsborg are terrible.
They still managed to score 3.
They still managed to score 3 because ultimately, Galatasaray, for me, they're essentially West Ham. They are dreadful.
Galatasaray have got better forwards than West Ham.
They're dreadful at the back, but very, very good. Very good up front. Yeah, very good up front. They're dangerous up front, and that's why
West Ham would. I know they got Kudus and Bowen. They'd love West Ham's Galatasaray's forwards.
Yeah. No, but I think Galatasaray probably love West Ham's defence, and that's how bad they are in defence, right? I think Galatasaray and West Ham, Galatasaray in the Premier League, I think there'd be a similar sort of proposition to West Ham. And I think it's a great opportunity for the kids to go out there to Galatasaray, and really, it will be tough. It is a hostile environment, but they're not actually that good. They're really not. And I think if they go out there and weather the storm for the first 20 minutes and realise that if they play their game and dominate possession and cut off the supply to that front three of is it Mertens and Osimhen and
is Icardi still there?
Icardi. It's amazing how this happens, but yeah.
A couple of comments from the FPL Juice Show. If you like your fantasy league, the FPL Juice also comes out of the Launch Pod studios. It really is a great fantasy league show, although they're taking a piss out of me here. I think the guy on the left, I think that's me, looks proper intelligent. It's the glasses, but speaks rubbish. Absolutely right. Welcome to Ronnie, a good friend of the show. Coys, with Son out on Sunday, Moore has to play. Definitely going to come to that. We will definitely be talking about Mikey Moore. I just want to talk about the game itself, not in great detail. When we had Marcel van der Kraan on, or Kran, I think he said it was, on Monday, he said Alkmaar will come and play.
Tuesday morning, actually.
Was it Tuesday morning?
No, it was Monday, but it went out on Tuesday.
It went out on Tuesday morning. He said Alkmaar would come to play like most Dutch teams. They didn't come to play, they came to kick. And I was disappointed. I couldn't really care less what they do. But I didn't think they didn't impress me at all.
They had a bad injury with Van Bommel.
You said that was such a shame. You may not have seen it in the ground, but they cut to his dad, who, from what I understand, what Marcel was saying, doesn't get to see him that often because he's coaching himself elsewhere on a Saturday.
Right.
So this was an opportunity for Van Bommel to go and watch his son live in a Europa League game, and 12 minutes later he's coming off.
Yeah. And it's a shame because actually I've been looking forward to watching him. But funnily enough, I think that might have done them a bit of a favour because their only real threat and outlet was the guy that started on the right. I think his name was Poku. Started on the right, moved over to the left. Absolute speed merchant and gave Archie Gray a torrid night. Whether they came to not play and Marcel might have been wrong in his assessment, or whether they just couldn't because we didn't allow them, I guess we will never know. But what had been expected to be quite an open, free-scoring game full of chances really was quite a stodgy, turgid affair in the end, and a bit of a nothing game ultimately.
All about the result, though, no?
Yeah, absolutely. You'd take that at this stage. I mean, no one remembers Europa League group stage games.
League stage, please.
League phase, sorry, yeah. There've been enough of these over the years. It's getting a result is.
But there's been enough of these games we don't win. At home, we're normally pretty solid, but it's vital to get 3 from 3. I think there are 3 teams: us, Lazio, and Anderlecht. The only ones with 3. United have got 3 draws. Performances specifically, we are going to come to Mikey Moore. A slight negative. Let's do that. Dragusin.
I don't see that as.
I don't think it was bad. I think it was bad.
Just not great.
I just think you're going to moan about minutes. Just put in. I don't know. He's a really good blocker and stopper. Just a little bit disappointing. I think he was trying maybe too hard, a bit rushed on the ball.
Nervous.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously he got sent off in the first game, right? And so he recognises the opportunity to get some minutes here, and it's a limited opportunity, and it shows, how hard it is to build a deep squad because Dragusin is a very highly rated defender, very, very highly rated, and he could be in a position where he quickly becomes, quite frustrated because he comes in and it is hard to pick up the pace, and he's also playing in a makeshift back four. He's not playing alongside Van de Ven and Porro with Vicario behind him, and he's probably very conscious of that. And there's quite a lot of responsibilities, I think, on his shoulders, to be fair, to lead that defence. Yes, he's got Ben Davies alongside him, but does he trust Ben Davies for pace? Probably not.
No.
So,
Isn't this just a reason to sort of sympathise with him?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Exactly what I'm saying, right? Is I think you have to sort of put some context around, he has to come in and be, I think, the leader of that defence in a makeshift defence. He's got a fair bit of pressure on his shoulders. So I'm not really sort of prepared to judge him on last night. He also was covering the side of the pitch where their biggest threat was coming from. Was it Poku, his name? The speed merchant who really was giving Archie Gray a hard time. So I can see why you might point the finger at Dragusin, but I'm just not really prepared to do that. I thought overall his performance was par.
Okay. Anything else stand out?
Well, the one thing that I wanted to ask, before we get to the conversation about Mikey Moore in conjunction with that, probably Timo Werner, watching it on TV and listening to it after, because I haven't caught up yet with all of the post-match stuff, was there anything that came out about the Richarlison penalty?
Yeah.
There was, right. So what was
Maddison said having called Mikey Moore Neymar, he said that as the captain or leader, as one of the elder statesmen on the team sheet, he thought it was the right thing to do. Richie's had a hard time with injuries and whatever else, and strikers need goals.
Yeah.
He just thought it was the right thing to do.
But then why did he take it off him?
Well,
in the first
that's my thing.
He must have been the designated penalty taker.
What? Maddison?
Yeah.
You think?
They must have a designated penalty.
So I think it was Richarlison, because if it was Maddison, then why would Richarlison wouldn't?
I think
have
Richarlison
done
was like, come on, mate, let me have it.
Oh,
it's
right.
easier for Richarlison to have that conversation than Maddison sort of. I feel that's easier conversation to have at that point.
I just thought the whole thing was a bit of a shame, because number one, for me, penalty takers should always be decided upon, before you go out. It should be known as soon as the penalty comes. And then I just don't like to see that. I mean, I saw Maddison go over and give him a big hug after, and I do think it was right that, I don't know if even if it was right that Richarlison took the penalty. It was 0-0 at the time. If you're 2-0 up, if we'd been given that penalty in the last minute that got reviewed, then Richarlison, I think, was
in principle,
But in principle,
it should be the penalty taker.
It should be it's 0-0. That is a big moment.
Yeah,
in the
if
game.
he misses it, Maddison looks a bit of a wally.
Yeah, and so does he. And then it becomes a much bigger thing than it actually is, and there's a load of pressure on him through having gone through that process. And look, if Rich wants goals because he's been out, get yourself in the box
and also
get a goal.
And that's not the time to get one of those penalties. If it's a penalty that is to get someone confidence, that's not the time to do it, is it? You do it.
Listen,
in the 90th
it's
minute.
big brass, from Rich to want to step up and take it, and I admire that. It just didn't sit and resonate well with me that happened.
Just on Richarlison, just quickly, Robert is one of our Echo of Glory members. You can obviously subscribe, which people have done. Thank you very much. But on the YouTube channel, you have to do this on a laptop or a computer. Can't do it on your phone. Become a member. There's a few different price options. There's some extra content in there. We spoke to Mickey Hazard, Darren Bent, a really good interview last week with Marcel van der Kraan about the Spurs Dutch connection. So do that. Help us out here at Launchport Studios. But anyway, Robert says, big up, guys. 3 from 3 in Europe. Amazing start. Absolutely. Rick in Brighton, I think it was only positives from a potentially negative situation. Richie with a sulky lip, Maddison forcing hierarchy, then being the bigger person. Yeah.
Correct, exactly that. It turned out very, very positive, but it could have gone so wrong. And I think actually the way it turned out was right. Maddison recognising the importance to Rich and giving him that opportunity, and Richie taking a good penalty and scoring, it all turned out fine. But
yeah, and Carl Hussey says, Carl Hussey, did he play cricket for Australia? That was Mike Hussey and David Hussey. Maybe related. A lot of Australian listeners. Dragosin suffering from rusty lack of game time will come good. Fine. I agree. I've got no problem with it.
I agree completely.
You're absolutely right, Carl. On Richie, when I was watching him last night, I thought he played okay. He's nowhere for me in Solanke's class. But isn't it great to have 2 proper centre forwards?
He's a really, 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 I mean, he should be for 60 million quid, but he's a really, really good backup.
Yeah.
And a really good Europa League league phase striker.
All right, I've left it 20 minutes. Should we talk about Mikey Moore?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we have to talk about the left-hand side of the pitch generally, especially with Palace coming up and Son allegedly out.
So we started the game with Timo Werner, who, and people may disagree, who I actually don't think had too bad a game apart from when he has to finish. And we've talked about here last couple of weeks. I think he's broken. I do, but I think he's mentally got a problem. That finish, the first one, I think if you put me in that spot, having never played a game of professional football in my life, in my jeans and trainers, I'm not saying I would have scored, but I might have taken a touch or leathered it. He just passed it back to the goalkeeper, Ren, fully coised. Good mate, Ren, we're all fully coised too. He's got a problem. He scored goals in Germany, didn't have a bad record for Chelsea, did okay for us last season. I think people will laugh and go, we told you he was rubbish. It's actually quite sad to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if he's broken.
No, but I think up here, he knows he's going to miss before he scores.
It's not. It doesn't look great, and in light of the things he's spoken about in the past, about I think when he was at Leipzig, he had to go off because the stadium was too loud. Or
really?
Like that. Years ago.
Oh wow, okay.
He's had some things that he's quite open about, the fact that he talks about things quite openly, and it kind of shows up that he is affected by things, and confidence is a big thing for him.
Sure.
And it does affect him in a serious way. But, obviously his primary job is to get the ball in the goal. And in those situations, he should be doing better. But I do think he's getting like really, really good chances.
He's not hiding.
Fairly consistently against decent teams. And his runs are really good.
Yep.
And he's got a lot of pace, and like he's just making decisions badly, and like writing him off which is what a lot of people are doing. And it's not just this season. It's not just the last couple of games. It's something he came to us with a like.
He was on the bench at Leipzig at that point.
But also he came and everyone talked about him as, oh, well, he's not a finisher, is he? He's not going to score 25 goals. And so in light of all of that, it is kind of like, well...
Told you so.
Yeah. But I think writing him off, he makes things happen. He makes things difficult for opponents. And like getting... my mate who I sit with at Spurs said... he's just stopped doing that thing that he was doing last season where he stands up a defender, cuts onto his left, he's really quick and then put the ball across the box.
Yep.
He's just stopped doing that. And I do think like just working with him to get that back is going to be as important as just trying to get him to finish.
Can I pick up on that? Ren absolutely seems to have some sensory issues. I think the chance he had yesterday, he almost didn't know where he was. Like he had I don't think he had a picture in his mind of where am I? Can I take a touch? Where's the centre half? Where's the goalkeeper? He just hit it.
Yeah, well, I think that's just like decision making that will come. And like the other one that he missed, which was away, was nowhere near as bad. I think he just made the wrong decision in shooting. I think he should have got his head up and like maybe cut back and passed it or something, or drilled it across the box or something. He had a bit more time than he thought he did, and he just hit it left-footed, falling back and skied it. So I'm not like quite so worried. Can I chuck in some numbers?
For Werner.
Werner.
I should point out, and I didn't introduce you properly, Ali being from Opta Analyst.
Middle name Numbers Man.
Ali Numbers Man Tweedale.
Yeah,
so Ali is from the brilliant Opta Analyst. Have you got an article coming out on Spurs, did you say?
No.
Right,
I've always got something that
he's always carrying numbers around with him. And what have you got?
Yeah. So in all competitions this season, Werner has 0 goals in 417 minutes from 9 shots, equating to 1.17 XG. All right. So according to his expected goals, all of those chances should amount to around 1 goal. All right. I know that sort of anecdotally, having seen those chances, everyone would say, well, he should have done better, especially the bad one last night. He probably should have got into a position which would have been a higher XG chance. Basically, so there are caveats to all this, but what I want to say is that isn't a terrible record. That's not a put him in the bin record. I've been on this pod before and spoken about Brennan Johnson last season. He was the second worst finisher in the Premier League over the whole of last season. It was 5 goals from like 11 XG. And this season, some of the players who have got worse records than him, goals compared to XG this season, I'll just chuck a few names out. Alexander Isak, Eberechi Eze, Gabriel Jesus, Anthony Gordon, Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
I'm here for numbers. It's my job as much as it is yours, but I think the eye test and I just think we're looking at him, and some people have said, Ren said he's a scapegoat at the moment, possibly. Has it been Binny guy? Someone just, a collective intake of breath and then a mutter in the stadium. That's from Rick and Brighton. I think I get the point. He's getting into good positions, and maybe actually he should only have 1 goal, but it doesn't look like it's coming.
No, I know, but like loads of people were writing off Brennan Johnson at the start of the season.
I'd love him to turn it around.
The Coventry game, that was so recently. And I'm not saying the same's going to happen with Werner, but I think that people need to he's a professional footballer. He's won the Champions League. Like there is more to him than what we've seen over the last few weeks. And so I'm just not quite so ready to write him off, basically.
With Werner, I was advocating for the loan to be extended, and I thought it was a good move. I thought his numbers last season were impressive, and I sort of looked at the assists and so on and said over a 38-game period he'd have had 25 goal involvements. That's what it worked out to last season. I think he's a player with value. I like his attitude. He continues to make the runs. As you say, he doesn't hide. He put in a brilliant cross for Mikey Moore in the first half, which probably Mikey should score from, and that might change things for him. Ultimately, though, my problem with it at this stage is when you see the impact of Moore on the left, which is his natural position, and then Moore comes off and Odegaard comes on for the last 10 minutes and also looks very good on the left.
Yeah, I had a Burnley fan when he signed saying Odegaard's a left winger.
But that to me then becomes the bigger question. I like Werner. I like his professionalism. I like his attitude. I think he has a place and value in a squad, and particularly for this season, in giving the opportunity for the likes of Odegaard and Moore to come through. Ultimately, he's not going to be a long-term player for us. And with sort of Son, Odegaard and Moore now all fit, you'd like to think that the conversation about Werner will decrease. In fact, even this week, there's talk about him possibly going somewhere else in January. So I don't want to say a bad word about Werner. I quite like him. I quite like his attitude. I quite like the way he plays and what he tries to do. It's ultimately not good enough. But it does lead to the conversation about Mikey Moore, because Mikey Moore goes over to the left, which is his natural position. That's the first time I think he's actually played on the left for us. I think he's against Ferencváros, he was on the right. And I think that's the first time we've really seen him on the left.
Certainly for a spell of more than 5 minutes.
And he showed us, I think, for the first time in the first team. He was great against Ferencváros, by the way. This is not to take away from Mikey Moore's performance against Ferencváros, where he was also very good. But when you see the impact of a player like that on the left, the conversation is no longer about Werner and his merits. It is all about now Mikey Moore, because there is no real excuse any longer to put Werner ahead of Moore in any given situation, whether that is on... No, there isn't. Not on Sun. No, there isn't. There is not an excuse.
He's too young. He's 17.
If you're in a position where Son isn't fit and you are choosing between, I don't know, more...
Gary, we've got Sunday. As Darren says in big, bold letters, should we be concerned by Heung-min Son's fitness? Yes. He's out of the Palace game. So come on, let's have that conversation. Does Moore... start?
For me, 100%.
I think so.
100%. Palace are going to sit...
I get the point about young players. Moore's game time needs to be managed. Yes, but Werner...
But here's where I'm at with it, okay? You've now got two players who are, as you said, your Burnley mate said Odegaard is best off the left, okay?
Also back from injury.
Just back from injury.
He was not ready to start.
No, but that's the point, right? Moore's minutes do need to be managed, but also he's not going to improve sitting on the bench. To me, you start Moore, you get 60, 70 minutes out of him on Sunday, and then you bring on Odegaard. There is no need on Sunday for Werner. I will be extremely disappointed to see him in the team. And this isn't Werner hate from me. It is just that we've got two players that have a future at the club, and we should be giving minutes to and not giving them to a guy who doesn't have a future at the club. That is the short of it, particularly against a team that will be sat much deeper. Yeah. You could see against Brighton away, for example, where they would push up, and that chance that Moore had, that Werner had in the very first second, right? That was typical of what you would expect against Brighton. Palace are going to sit deep. He's not going to have 30 yards of room in behind them. They're going to sit deep. That's where you want Moore and Odegaard, those players.
I think Jake makes a good point. Jake Sanders makes a good point.
Of this parish.
Yes, I know. Any chance Maddison plays left wing, played there before for Leicester? Yes, I think that's a very good
also
option.
in a team that won't push up, he is an option.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just don't think it's realistic. I think that at this level, players like Mikey Moore, 17-year-olds, don't get chucked in when there are like so many other options. If they're,
I don't know. I think when you've got a talent like that, you got.
Yeah, but like also there's so many examples of this, like at other clubs where it just doesn't happen. I don't disagree with the fact that he should get minutes, but I think like with the Europa League, that will be where he will get minutes. I don't know. I personally think that Werner. I think Werner will start there, but I think Maddison's an option there. And another option, which I actually think is still more likely than Moore, but I don't like it, is Richarlison on the left. And Richarlison has played on the left before.
Listen, the left-hand side is a place where we're sport for choice with options, okay? There's no doubt. What convinces me that Mikey Moore is ready to start...
By the way, this Norman Stanley Fletcher, is he like your... I know you don't have a brother... it's a real love-in between you and him. Do you know him?
I don't. I don't know Norman, but he obviously knows his football.
He obviously knows his football. But also on the comments, you've seen Robert on the comments get a nice little Spurs cockerel. If you become a Spurs member, an Echo of Glory member, you get a lovely Spurs cockerel. There you go. Look at that, Robert.
Yeah, but right. So here's what convinces me that Moore is ready to start. Is you can talk about 17-year-olds and so on, but it's the responsibility that he took last night. It's the way that he stepped up and said, I'm going to take a turgid performance that, has been generally that it was just a bit, nothing really happening. And he just took it on his shoulders and upped the level and took the game to
the Premier League is just a step up.
I get that. I understand that. But I think against Palace, he's going to have loads of opportunity to go at them. Would I play him if we weren't playing Palace on Sunday, we were playing at Anfield? No, I wouldn't play him, right? But I just think against Palace, it is a great opportunity for him. And I think he could play 60, 70 minutes and then Odegaard comes on. I just don't see the need for Werner. But what I would say about Mikey Moore, because let's talk about, not about whether he should start or not, that's up to Ange. And I kind of agree with you. I think Ange will go with Werner, unfortunately. But what I want to say about Mikey Moore is the comment from Maddison being that he thought we had Neymar out on the left for 20 minutes. I was never a huge fan of Neymar's anyway, but what I would say is...
You're going to say Mikey Moore's better than Neymar?
No. What I would say is what I love about Mikey Moore is straight away, you can have... We have had, under Pochettino and now under Ange, teams that have got us out of our seats with the way that they play football. But what we really love at Tottenham is a player receiving the ball and that player getting you out your seat. A Bale, we haven't had it since Bale. A Ginola, a Van der Vaart. The player gets the ball and you're expecting something to happen.
Let me tell you, we've had players that get me out of my seat, but normally because I've had enough and I want to go get a pint and a half. So.
But what I love about Mikey Moore straight away is the crowd knew, they could see what he's about, and every time he got the ball you're on the edge of the seat because he's a player that's going to look to make something happen, he's going to create excitement, he's going to go past a man. And it was it was the drop of the shoulder, the swivel of the hips, the way he swerved his body, like it was Ginola-esque.
But also,
actually.
Gary, is it not saying there's plenty of players who can do that? There's young players who will have that confidence. The final ball,
but this
to have that on the end of it.
It was Ginola-esque, the way he would take the ball in tight spaces, wriggle out of it and then get down that line and deliver the ball was absolutely exceptional.
Is he better than Neymar? Ren says it's a big call thinking he's better than Neymar. He's been better than Neymar has been in the last couple of years.
No, I think nobody's saying he's better than Neymar, right? No, nobody's saying he's better than Neymar. What I'm saying is I think Neymar's the wrong comparison. I think Maddison should be comparing him to Ginola, who I think is much more the sort of style that Mikey Moore looks to me. But it's just, how nice is it to have that player that gets you out of that seat? He receives the ball and you're on the edge of your seat waiting for something to happen because he has that ability. I just think it's absolutely... I'm so excited to watch this.
It's a good point from son of a gun, who I have to say earlier said that I was right about something. I don't know I can't now remember what it was. Oh, that Werner looks broken. So finally someone's admitted that I was right. It's taken 2 years.
We talk about this stuff, right? I mean, you take a look at the... who's the kid? Lamar.
Yeah.
Now, he's exceptional. I agree. He's 16, though. And he was 16 when he was playing for Spain, winning the European Championships. So you can't say to me that... And the thing about Moore as well...
He's 17 now. But
I'm 17 now. But he was 16 when he broke through. He's got the build. He's got the physique. Yes, he needs to be managed. Of course he does. But I just think, when you've got a talent like that, you've got to throw him in there. That was one of the most brilliant virtuoso performance I've seen from a kid as long as I've watched Tottenham.
I like the idea. I love the idea of it working, of him going in and it working. I love it. I personally just don't think that. I just don't think he'll go straight into the Premier League. I think it's such a step up.
Do you know what I'd rather see? I'd rather see him start against Palace, right, and either Odegaard or Werner start against City. That's what I would rather see.
Wow.
A few comments. Just go through them. There's been a lot of comments on this, which is always good. Binny Guy, we don't need to axe Werner, just manage him.
Yeah,
that's right. Half and half in between Werner and Moore. If Son not playing, that's what you said, I think. And Ren says it's very exciting. It is all very exciting. Robert, I get the excitement about Moore, but I think Odegaard coming back into the team is a real sleeper. He's going to make a huge impact. Electric player. I hope so. Look, he had a good 10 minutes when he came on. I think he looks more comfortable on the left. He started really well was his debut against Everton? On the left, and
Odegaard.
I think, yeah. And first 20 minutes he was pretty good, and then he switched to the right, he wasn't as good. I just want to pick up on what George Constantin, sorry, I'm not going to pronounce your name right, but I'm going to go with George. You said it's a nothing game. This is based on what I said about the Alkmaar opposition. There was so much to take out of the game. I've just had something pop up on my screen and now I can't read it. I've lost it. Oh, there it is. So many positives from certain players. Absolutely. Fans complain when the game is open and then they complain when it's tight. I wasn't complaining it was tight. I was just looking forward as some sort of weird football purist that Alkmaar were going to come and play open.
The point was that we had Marcel, the Dutch correspondent, on telling us that Alkmaar are a very, very attacking team who sometimes are a bit open and concede, and so therefore he thought it would be a high-scoring game. Nobody's complaining that it wasn't a high-scoring game. I don't mind that it was a bit of a nothing game in the end. Doesn't bother me. We won, and that's the important thing. It's also nice to keep a clean sheet.
Clean sheet, yeah.
You know, but we're just saying that it wasn't the game that we were expecting. That's it.
Any other points of order from last night?
No, we're in a great position in the Europa League. We are odds-on favourites, I think, to win the whole competition. Our next 3 games will be, I think, really sort of telling. And look, I just think it's. I'm just delighted that I've booked my flights, to be honest. So
to Bilbao,
yeah.
I was thinking about that last night.
Were you?
Yeah, I was thinking about you.
You've dropped. You've
think
booked
about
your
you a lot.
flights?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've booked my flights.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was thinking about
that's not arrogance, by the way. It's not an arrogant sort of.
You can have a holiday, nice holiday in San Sebastian.
But the reality is, the flights were like 150 quid, direct flight, great times, going out the day before, coming back the day after. My big panic with the Champions League was I actually couldn't get a flight, and then when I could, it was like massive expensive. So, look, you know, it's a risk, but it's one I'm prepared to take.
Yeah. I should just drop in on that odds-on favourites to win the Europa League. I should drop in because my boss sent it to me just before I came here. Spurs are now, they didn't start the season as favourites, but they are now, after last night's results, the favourites to win Europa League according to the Opta supercomputer, which it simulates the season 10,000 times and gives a proportion of, based on the results of individual matches, the proportion of times that each team wins it, and 18%. So that's one in 5 times.
Who's second?
Lazio. Spurs, Lazio, Porto Athletic.
I don't know how old you are, Ali. You may not even remember Big Bertha, the cartoon. It was like this big computer.
We've talked about Bertha in the office, yeah.
So I always go. I see this Opta supercomputer. Is it blinking away in the back, and you have to go and pull them, leave it? Yeah,
it's really
manually put in the results.
It's crazy. That is just a room full of wires and stuff like that.
Is it? Was this
no. Much less exciting than that.
Have we asked the octopus? Great point, Paul the octopus.
Yeah.
Are any German teams any good in the Europa League? Frankfurt looked decent.
Listen, there's no foregone conclusion, right? But Lazio are hardly. I mean, I think they are 6th in Syria. Porto would always be a threat, but when it comes down to it, and for all the Opta computer is analysing the results at the moment, it probably hasn't taken into account that actually we've played this so far with our second team. Whereas you know, I think if we'd played this with our first team and absolutely slaughtered every team we'd played 4 or 5-0, which is probably what would have happened. It would probably have us at 35%.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the point isn't really that Spurs are like more likely than anyone to win it, because the differences between each team are going to be so minute. The point is more, this is a massive opportunity, and Spurs should be going really deep in this competition, and
you should be going to Bilbao.
Yeah, and you should be in a position where you're not
what
wasting
happens
your
in
flights.
Bilbao in a one-off game, you know, it's a one-off game, anything can happen. But I believe that, I mean, I think every leg up until then is 2 legs, right? And over 2 legs against any team, I would expect us to come out on top. So I would expect for me to be in Bilbao.
And having won 3 games from 3, you should be expecting to finish in the top 8, which avoids that playoff round, which you just...
2 games less.
I'm faffing about with my ears because we've got another game coming up and we've got a guest coming on, but I can't get my ears in properly, so it's probably going to look really weird. I'll sort it out in a second. Can Big Bertha predict the Premier League results this week? Does the Opta computer do...
Yeah, weekly, not scores, but win, draw, loss. Are
we going to beat Palace?
Go on theanalyst.com and check it out.
We are going to
can't tell you off the top of my head, but
we are in a minute going to speak to Mark Scott, who is Match of the Day commentator, Premier League commentator, who is commentating on the game on Sunday. He's going to be joining us soon. If you've got any questions for Mark, you know, may want to get an insight into how a commentator goes about his day, drop them in. But we are going to talk to Mark in a minute. He's seen Palace and Spurs quite a lot this season. Let's wait for Mark. But while we wait for Mark, you know, the old Dr. Tottenham stuff coming back.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
well, they haven't won
It's
at home
trending
yet.
the other
That's a
day.
great stat. The first time in, you know this, Ali, but the first time in top flight history that there are 4 teams who haven't won their first game of the season.
Yeah,
Palace, Ipswich, Wolves and Southampton.
yeah.
Uh,
It's a bit of a worry, I think.
Speaking of Dr. Tottenham, sorry, it just reminded me of something that Marcel said, that AZ have this voodoo hanging over them, that they've never left Britain with so much as a point.
Still haven't.
And we were very concerned when he said that. We're like, okay, they haven't played Tottenham yet. But thankfully we keep that voodoo over them.
You'll have to tell me what Mark says because I can't get to sort my ears out today. But it's a place where we have struggled a little bit. We lost 3-0
3-0
there.
a couple of years ago, yeah.
Who was that under?
Vieira. Oh, well, for us,
That
it
was-
was Vieira.
I think it was
Mourinho.
Mourinho?
It was when it was Tanganga, it was 0-0.
Yeah.
That was Mourinho.
And it was a
But
very
Skip
nothing
played.
game.
It was an awful team.
Yeah.
But it's a team that we've beaten a lot in the Premier League. I don't think, certainly at Spurs, they've barely scored a goal again. I know Eze scored a free kick last season, but they've barely scored a goal. Banana skin, you worried about it?
Definitely a potential banana skin, yeah. I think the whole Dr. Tottenham thing just plays into this. Like, no one would be surprised if Spurs lost that game.
But the thing
like,
is,
it would be very typical for Palace to finally get their first
I
win
think
of the
it's a
season.
little bit disingenuous to be saying, nobody would be surprised with Dr. Tottenham. The reality is, and I don't know what Mark is going to say, but I think Palace are in a false position at the minute. I think they've got a good manager, they've got a good squad. Going to Selhurst Park is never an easy game. It just isn't. I hope we go a goal up quite early and that really puts them under pressure and that could make it a much easier game than it should be. But the reality is, going to Selhurst Park is just not an easy game at all.
Yeah, that's
I wouldn't see
definitely
it as a potential banana skin because I don't see it in that way. I see it as a bloody tough away game, and that's exactly what it is. But we ought to have enough to get through it.
Team changes. Would you go back to the team that beat West Ham minus Son? So who are you starting then? You're starting Timo Werner.
Well, I hadn't even considered the Maddison thing, and all of a sudden, I would put Maddison out wide and
Would
play
you?
Sarr in the middle. Yeah,
Yeah, he might do that.
which actually seems quite bonkers considering we've just been talking about how many options there are of like natural left-sided players to play Maddison out there. But I think that maybe makes most sense if he feels comfortable doing the job of. You're like that.
I think
Really
I've
struggling.
rejected these earpieces before because they're made by someone who's standing upside down.
I would probably go with Maddison, but I think maybe Werner is a more likely option. So
You worried
maybe-
about, like Ronnie, Palace first win with an Nketiah scoring first goal.
Oh God, yeah.
Hasn't Ketia not scored for them yet?
No, he came very close on Monday against Forest.
So come on, you're picking the team, guys. Who you playing?
I think there was a.
It's fine.
I think there was a game a couple of weeks ago when I sort of called for Maddison to be on the left,
Wrong way.
and had it not have been for last night, I might be agreeing with that. But for me, I just think I think against this Palace team, we've got to go at them. They're going to sit deep. I think you've got to play the combination of Maddison and Kulusevski in the middle. I think you've got to go Moore on the left, Johnson on the right, obviously Solanke up top, Basuma probably in the 6. And then your back 4 of Porro, Romero, Van de Ven, Udogie, and Vicario in goal. I've really sort of done that in a weird way, but yeah, I just think that Moore probably is feeling on top of the world at the minute. And you say to him, you know what, go out there, run at them for 60 minutes, see what happens. I don't see what the worst thing that can happen is. If it doesn't come off, you bring on either Werner or Odegaard, or you move Maddison to the left. There's so many options, but I just think when this lad is feeling as confident as he is, just let him go at them.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what Ange is saying to them before the game, I'm happy with. I'm fine with it. Like I say, I'd be happy with it. I just don't really think it's realistic. But yeah, I think the rest of the team kind of picks itself, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's
without a doubt. It's only that left hand side.
I suppose. Sorry, did you say Maddison in the middle? Over
Maddison
Sarr?
with Kulusevski.
So you wouldn't play Sarr after last West Ham?
No, I just don't. I don't think that Palace are. I haven't seen a huge amount of Palace, but I don't think they're going to try and get at us. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to try and play on the break as much piss ball. They sit deep. So
I guess the thing to consider is what the reason Ange said. I mean, whether he was telling the truth or not, whether he was being honest or not. The reason he said he made the change was for more physicality in midfield, and Palace do have that in Jefferson Lerma and Adam Wharton. They do have
Wharton's not been playing.
But then,
not?
but
Been
then,
on the bench.
but then
Injured, but hasn't got back in the team.
But then I could say to you the whole reason that the Kulusevski-Maddison combination came was away at St James's, where he started Sarr for the physicality aspect, and it wasn't quite working. Then second half, okay, we lost the game, but actually it started to create things that we didn't have previously. And okay, I wouldn't even say it didn't work against West Ham. They just exploited an area that it left in behind, sort of the Maddison channel, as it were. But I just think that we're better than Palace. We're a much better footballing team than them. They will be resolute. They will be tough. They'll be hard to break down.
And they're also desperate. And it's
exactly. And I just
I
think if we go at them in the first 10, 15 minutes and get a goal up, Selhurst Park become a very tough place for them. And that's probably a great opportunity for us. So that's why I'd go aggressive, to be honest.
I'm just waiting to Mark to join us. He'll be with us shortly. Hopefully. Soul Sniper Gaming said, surely if Udogie isn't rested, he'll suffer a fatigue injury. There is concerns for me. I think Jersey Spurs, quite funny on Twitter, said, what minutes Udogie getting injured tonight? That was before kickoff, but he came through it. Look at the following games. City, Villa, Galatasaray. Why not sit him out for Spence? I mean, Spence might play on Wednesday night.
I don't think that's a bad shout, especially because you can't do that in the Europa League.
No. Well, we have not had you on since the Europa League squad was announced. Was that strange for you?
So strange. It doesn't make any sense. I think what would have made more sense is doing what Chelsea did and leaving out a first teamer. So they left out Cole Palmer from there. Just leave someone.
Different in the Conference League. I'm going to interrupt you because Mark is with us. I can see him. Can I hear him? Can't hear him.
No.
How about now?
Nah, I can hear you. You got us?
Yeah, loud and clear. Seeing you in all your glory.
Very good. Yeah, all our record. Very good. Very good. Mark, thank you for joining us. As I was saying earlier, Match of the Day commentator, Premier League commentator. We'll go straight in. You've seen a lot of Palace. You've seen a lot of Spurs. You're seeing them both on Sunday for Match of the Day.
Yeah.
Talk to us. Start with Palace. Ended the season really, really well. This season, as we said, no wins. What has happened? I know they lost a few key players, but what's going on over there?
Well, I think first of all, you've got to look at Michael Alissé. Losing him, massive, massive blow for Palace. I saw a stat actually saying that since Oliver Glasner took over, the only game that Palace won without Michael Alissé was against Burnley, and Burnley were down to 10 men and obviously went on to be relegated. So I wouldn't quite say it's necessarily a bit like Barcelona in the Messi days, when it was like when he's in the team, he could solve all of the ills because everything else was going quite nicely for them as well. Adam Wharton, obviously there was a lot of clamour for him to get into the England team given his end to last season. He's been struggling with a groin injury, so that's meant that he's not been available, or when he has played, he's not been at full capacity. Czech Decore, who's probably the first choice central midfield partner for him as well, has not been around too much either. I don't know if he'll be available for the Tottenham game on Sunday. So there's a few sort of things like that, but I think most of the gripes from what I've read and heard from people associated with Palace is that the formation's not quite worked under Oliver Glasner this season. He's trying to fit players into the system that doesn't quite seem to work for him. Wing-backs wise, Tyrick Mitchell, excellent. Full-back, probably not a wing-back. And Daniel Munoz, the Colombian, who again was excellent towards the back end of last season, has not really been at it again this term as well. So I just think that there's a lot of things that aren't quite clicking, and when you add them all up, that's why you end up with a team that only have 3 points so far. Yeah.
We've got a comment here from Darren Fearon on our live chat. For a second, I thought my radio was on, so he recognises your voice, Mark. Great to have people like you coming on. Last season, we had a guy called James Holland, who has just retired, actually, was playing out in Austria, who played under Ange, but also played under Oliver Glasner. He said they're both very similar people, but he did say you might have to wait. It takes a while for what they're trying to do to come to fruition. Maybe Glasner wasn't helped by that great run at the end of last season. Is there patience? Palace are a very patient club. You know, there's jokes about Roy Hodgson waiting in the wings. That's not going to be true. But is he under threat?
At the moment, I don't think so. I think that, you know, I wouldn't say that obviously the Spurs game is a write-off, but, you know, they're underdogs for that, given Tottenham's form and the way things have been going for Palace so far. the Wolves match that is on the horizon. That's a big one. Obviously, they're currently winless at the moment as well in the Premier League. So that could be a big game both for Oliver Glasner and for Gary O'Neill, you think, as well. So I don't get the feeling that he's under any severe pressure right now. But obviously, depending how the match on Sunday goes, if it turned out to be a heavy defeat and there was more sort of dysfunction amongst the way that the team played. I think that there are a few gripes, having watched the Nottingham Forest game, from some Palace fans about the fact that there didn't seem to be a real cohesive game plan in that match. They only lost it by a 0-0, a mistake from Dean Henderson, which led to the winner from Chris Wood. But I just get the feeling that they feel that the plan's not quite working. And a lot of talk has been about the formation that he's persevering with. That he had so much success at Eintracht Frankfurt with the sort of three at the back and also playing those two behind another two going forwards as well. Without Alissé being around, it's not quite worked as well. He's tried to slot in Daichi Kamada, who he knew from his days at Eintracht Frankfurt. I think a lot of Palace fans were quite excited about the prospect of him coming in. They thought him on a free transfer was some shrewd business, and it's not really gone too well for him so far. So there's plenty of speculation as to whether he might tweak the formation, but you wonder if that's a dangerous game, given that that's the sort of thing that he knows like the back of his hand. And if he does switch things up and go to a 4 or try and alter that 2 behind 2 going forwards, if it might be a bit tricky to try and incorporate that with only a week between the Forest game and the Spurs match.
It's interesting, Mark, that you mentioned a lack of cohesion and game plan, because I was actually going to ask you, how do you expect Palace to approach this game against Tottenham versus what is their normal game plan? Do they try to dominate the ball, attack? Do they sit deep and break? Are they going to change it up against Tottenham? How are they going to go about this? Because if they go goal down early, Selhurst Park could become a bit of a toxic place for them.
That's exactly what I was saying to someone a little earlier on, that if Palace are sort of 2 down maybe after half an hour, then it could be a bit of a moody atmosphere there. And we know that Palace generally rely on the backing of the fans at Selhurst Park, which has got them over the line a number of times before. In terms of the way that they're going to approach it, I think it's sort of attempting to be a bit more possession-based than it was under Roy Hodgson, who was in charge before, where that was a lot of sort of sit deep, low block, try to pick up possession when you can and hit on transitions. But when you're playing one of the bigger sides in the league like Spurs, it's almost as if you have to try and adapt to what Tottenham try to dictate and try and pick any holes in Tottenham's side that you can, and there don't look to be too many in that regard at the moment either. So I think that it'll be Tottenham who will dictate, and then I think Glasner and Palace might have to just sort of readjust and see what they can do to cope with what Spurs throw at them.
So have results haven't been great, but have performances actually been that bad? Having not seen a lot of Palace this season, but at home in particular, there was the goalless draw with United, which isn't a terrible result. A 1-0 loss to Liverpool, which is a loss, but it's not a terrible result. A 2-2 draw with Leicester, who have had an okay start to the season. Let's write off the West Ham game, but that was 2 months ago now. Has it really been that bad?
From what I've read and what I've seen, I think it has been, unfortunately. They've only been in front once this season. That was away at Everton. They ended up losing that game. I know that there's an on-running joke about Spurs being Dr. Tottenham and they'll see you now when you need a result. But I think Palace fans that I've sort of been listening to on podcasts and whatnot have been saying that it's consultant Palace at the moment, even higher up than a doctor, because they sorted out both West Ham and Everton when they couldn't really buy a result. And you look at the way things have gone for West Ham since as well, and that win at Palace is an outlier for them this term. So performances have not been great. The Forest one was the latest in a long line. I think that they felt that Liverpool they could have got something out of if the finishing had been a bit better, but then again Liverpool could have run away with it in the first half. Poor marking for the only goal of the game that Diogo Jota scored when Trevor Chalobah seemed to switch off. There were high hopes when he came in from Chelsea on loan that would be another good acquisition. Not quite worked so far. So I think generally there's been a bit of apathy about the way that the performances have been. There have been no real standouts. They needed a last gasp penalty to get the draw against Leicester at Selhurst as well. So I don't think there's been any particular performance where they really felt that there was a great deal to write home about from what I've seen and what I've heard.
So Massage Rodriguez a little bit, Mark. 7 wins from 8 for Spurs. You've seen us a few times. What have been your thoughts?
Well, at the moment, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because I know that you guys, won't want to hear the word Spursy, but I find it incredible that that was bandied around when you look at that run of form that they've been on as well, especially in the Europa League as well. And it must be exciting for Tottenham. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing Neymar on Sunday. That's the main thing. I hope that he actually gets to start the game because, I mean, I was actually covering another Europa League game on Thursday night, so I didn't actually see it in full, but I've seen bits and pieces of Mikey Moore, and blimey, where did that come from? I know that he's very highly rated, but I didn't quite know that he had that in his locker and switching from the right to the left and doing, such a good job. And we know Ange can be a bit understated. So for him to even come out and start bigging him up like he did in the post-match stuff says a lot about his performance. But obviously, the switch of Kulusevski to that sort of central midfield role seems to have been a massive success this season. Interesting to see what's been happening with Maddison. He was hooked at half-time against West Ham, and obviously you went on to win that comfortably, so that seemed to work. Does that mean that his place is in jeopardy? I'm not so sure. Solanke's slotted in very nicely. I actually commentated for Match of the Day on the game that he got his first goal in, which I believe was against Brentford, wasn't it, when you went behind early on in that one. And they just seem to be a well-oiled machine. Everyone's playing quite well. The change, as I say, to playing sort of that holding midfielder and then having Kulusevski alongside Maddison or maybe Sarr, depending on who he wants to go with, seems to have worked very well. And Brennan Johnson's been a revelation as well. So personally, from the outside looking in, it seems to have been a very successful season. And I'm sure as Spurs fans, it must be pretty exciting as well.
Yeah. As Darren says, let's hope Spurs don't overrule the consultant and we are the specialist. Mark, I can't not have you on here. I can't let you go without tapping in a little bit into what you do. It's great to have someone like you on the show. I know you from Premier League days and other bits and pieces. But how do you prepare for Match of the Day on Sunday? Maybe different to a live game. Just an insight really into the day in the life of a Match of the Day commentator.
Well, it is very different when you're doing a full match and just doing a game for Match of the Day for highlights, because you don't get as long to talk because it's only sort of 7 or 8 minutes. And, normally it'll just be a chance and then you might see 1 or 2 replays after it. So when you do a live game, like I did the Wolves-Manchester City match for the Premier League World Feed last Sunday, and in a full game, you can really get into the nuts and bolts, maybe start talking about Gary O'Neill and what he said in the press conference and the formation and, Pep Guardiola being linked with the England job and get under the skin of things. But with Match of the Day, because it's quite sharp and short, you have to be very concise with what you do. So in terms of the information on the players, it might be a bit more pared back. How many goals has he scored this season? When did he last score? Did he score against Palace before from a Spurs point of view? What were the head-to-head games? But a lot of it is sort of calling the action and being on top of that and maybe slipping in a few news lines if there's been a juicy quote from Ange in the press conference or Oliver Glasner said something, quite vital, and you can get it down to maybe 10, 15 words, so that therefore the editors are more likely to keep it in when it's a quick sort of fast-paced edit. And then when you do a full match, you've got so much more info because you've got so much more time to actually get it in. So there is a bit of difference between that. And obviously when you're commentating for Match of the Day, you're on your own. So when there's something that happens and then there's a replay, I'm the one that's sort of trying to offer my analysis on what's happened. Whereas when you're doing a live game, you've got a co-commentator and then the commentator shuts up and then your expert, Matt Holland, for example, for the Wolves-Man City game, he'll come in and he'll offer what he has to say. It's probably a bit like, Rob Daly, who's a good friend of mine who does the Tottenham TV commentary. When he's doing the game on his own for you guys, he'll talk over the replays. But when he's got Clive Allen with him, that's when Clive can come in. So that's the major difference, I'd say.
Do you have one of those A4 sheets of paper that always go viral on Twitter with text covering every single corner, little bit of white space?
I think it's interesting because there seems to be a generational difference here, and I seem to have found myself in the middle of it. Despite being 43, I'm sort of edging towards the older scale because some of the guys still have handwritten notes. I think John Champion still handwrites all of his. Daniel Mann at Sky, I've seen exceptionally neat handwriting, and he laminates his sheets as well, taking it to the next level. Then you've got people like me who like to type them out and print them off and then have them in front of me. But I've seen some of the younger commentators turning up and they've got it all on their iPads. So there's no physical sort of paper in front of them, which absolutely freaks me out because we all know what it's like when your phone freezes or something like that. If all your info's on that and then that goes kaput, then you're absolutely snookered,
I've heard
aren't
that
you?
Conor McNamara turns up with a printer.
Yes. Well, actually, when I went to the Euros last summer, I took a printer with me because I didn't trust the hotel to be able to actually print them off. And when you're doing a tournament, then, yeah, that is quite handy to have the facility to print with you. I think Rob Hawthorne as well, I've seen, he's actually got a very small sort of portable printer that he can carry around with him onto the gantry. So, you know, if I ever earn enough, I might invest in that.
Well, I was quite interested to hear what you're saying about the editing and commentating for Match of the Day game, because I know nothing about media, and in fact one of our viewers has put, do you watch the whole game and edit, or edit highlights and commentate on highlights? I always assumed watching Match of the Day that the commentator watched the whole game and then it got edited down. So
Well, you're absolutely correct. There's these big conspiracy theories. I think there was one last season that got a bit of traction, that we don't even go to the games and then we head up to Salford afterwards and commentate on a 10-minute edit and pretend that it's done live, which I can confirm is not the case at all. The commentators go to the matches, the commentators commentate on the entire game, and then the wizards back in Salford will be able to sub it down to whatever duration they're given by the program editor. And the durations are quite strict. You know, if you've been given 8 minutes, you need to make sure that it is around 8 minutes. You can't be going 30 seconds sort of over that duration because everything is quite strict. So you do the whole game and then they work their magic up there and manage to fit it together. But also the real key thing is they manage to make the words work, because if you're commentating for 90 minutes, they then have to make sure that it flows and doesn't sound weird when they're sort of jolting everything together. But yeah, we go to the games, we do the whole game, and then they sub it down after the match is finished.
Okay.
Brilliant. Mark, that's great insight. You are going to be at the game on Sunday.
I am definitely going to be there.
Definitely going to be there. Can confirm. Echo of Glory exclusive. Match of the Day commentators do go to the game. You're neutral. You're watching it with neutral eyes. But can we get a prediction for the game?
I can't see beyond a Tottenham victory, to be honest with you. And given Palace's misfiring attack at the moment, because they've not really been able to work out how to get the most out of Eddie Nketiah so far, I can't see Palace scoring. So it's a question of how many for Spurs, in my view. So I'm going to go either 2 or 3-0 to Tottenham.
You can come again. Mark, really, it's been really, really great to talk to you. Thanks so much. And listen, everyone who's tuned in listening can see Mark on Match of the Day, hopefully.
Well, you won't see him.
Hear him. Sorry.
Thankfully not. You won't see me, no.
Well, sometimes he used to cut to Motti before a game. You got a sheepskin coat on, I don't know.
Yeah,
was it
I
Sellers
don't think
Park
I'm
where
in
Motti
quite
once
the same
walked round the
league in
ground?
terms of my fashion stakes as Motti was.
No. I think Motti, it might have been Sellers, his last game when he walked around the ground and got a standing ovation. That might be you.
He did, yeah, and he was given a little presentation by Palace as well. I'm trying to remember what it was, if it might have been like a little microphone souvenir, but yeah, that was his final game.
Yeah. Mark, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope to have you on again soon.
Cheers, guys. Take care. Have a good
Thank you
weekend.
Thank you. Cheers. Brilliant. Great chat.
Yeah, it really was.
All good?
I find that very insightful about the work that a commentator puts into and how they go about it. But also his insights on Palace and the fact that they probably won't change it. It reminded me of a conversation, I can't remember who it was that we had the conversation with, and some people were saying that maybe Ange needs to become, change the way that he plays. But the comment that came back from one of our guests was, when a manager has a philosophy, and then they change that philosophy because it seemed to be not working, they're kind of undermining everything that they've done previously and telling your squad it doesn't work. That in itself breeds that in itself breeds sort of discourse and a lack of confidence from the squad in what your manager is doing. So I think Glasner,
that's a great point.
He has a philosophy. He has to stick to it. I do agree that he hasn't got the players for it. Like, I don't think the wing backs. I don't think they're wing backs. I think they're very good fullbacks. But if they're prepared to stick by him for a project, then perhaps that's what he builds.
Well,
as long as they don't go down.
Talking of projects, our friend over here, Ali, what did you call your middle name? Armed with Stats Tweedo.
I remember something like that. Something equally funny.
You came armed with some stats this week, which tie into Ange's project, really.
Yes.
I am going to put them up on the screen. So you used to be able to say to you, if you're listening on Spotify, you can rotate your screen and see these images. You now can't watch us on Spotify. Sorry about that. But you can watch us on YouTube. So if you are listening to this, get onto the YouTube at some point and see these numbers, because Ali can explain them. I'm a football statistician by trade, but I don't really understand these. So Ali,
You
talk
can
to me
ask
about
as many questions as you like. Are they up? Can we get them up?
I don't know if I've put the right one up.
Not that one. We said,
It was a 50-50 chance I was always going to get it wrong.
We
So
said
what have we
before
got?
the technical way we were going to do this was you were going to put one of them up and I was going to quickly say yes or no. Not that one.
That's
It's the wrong
exactly how it panned out.
So what this tries to show is, or it does show, it shows expected goals per 90 for each team, depending on whether they are losing, drawing, or winning games. Some of this is hard to take it all in, so let's concentrate on Spurs. Some of the extremes are you can read less into, such as West Ham producing 2.2 XG per 90 when they're winning because they've barely been winning this season. So, but the thing about Spurs is they have been both winning, drawing, and losing enough to read into these numbers. And the point it basically makes is that whatever the situation for Spurs, no one will be surprised to hear this, but whatever the situation for Spurs, they just keep on attacking. So it's kind of even more extreme than City. Spurs are creating chances more, whether they are winning, drawing, or losing. And I think sometimes everyone would say that. I think one thing you could say is that those numbers when they're losing are really impressive, considering teams tend to sit back quite a lot against us when they've got a lead. But maybe slightly concerning just how gung-ho that is to be producing 2.2 expected goals per 90 when winning matches. And obviously against like West Ham and Everton, that means killing the game. And in other games, it's meant...
I've used this is the way we play, mate, almost as a negative, but actually this is a positive. This is the way we play, mate.
It is. That's exactly what it is. It's just showing just how extreme it is. And I don't know, some people might think that it shouldn't be quite so extreme in the winning game state. You should, maybe. Yeah. And if you go to the next one, we can see, so this is expected goal difference. So that is expected goals for minus expected goals against. So it shows that when Spurs are losing, it's basically the same as when.
Incredible.
So teams don't attack us when they are when they're beating Spurs. They just sit in. Just that. And in the drawing state, expected goal difference is basically Spurs are giving up as many chances as when they concede, and when winning, they are just really, really piling on the pressure. So yeah, that's. I mean, it's kind of, and just comparing it to other teams, it's kind of Spurs are among the highest for all of these things. And
interesting that Arsenal are not really piling on the pressure when they're losing.
Yeah, but they've been losing
against
and with 10 men against City.
Bournemouth.
They were only losing a bit against City, but and against Southampton.
No, they weren't losing against City. They drew. They were winning.
They did go 1-0 down, but that wasn't with 10 men. But and also against Bournemouth, they had 10 men, and they had all their good chances. Before.
Sodom.
Yeah. Anyway, it's basically just confirming, putting a number on just how extreme this. Like, this is how we play, mate, as you say, is for Spurs. Because I imagine it's hard. I mean, it's hard for anyone to keep up with every Premier League team. But if you can see in a chart that it really is true that Spurs are just attack. And I don't think there's all that need to do it just quite so much, in quite such an extreme way. But it's enjoyable.
Well, I think it's interesting what Mark said was...
Cheers, Ali, for that.
I think it's interesting what Mark said, which is, Palace's probably game plan on the weekend will probably have to be to cede possession and try and pick holes in Tottenham. But as far as he has seen, there aren't that many holes to pick. And you can say, like, you haven't got to be as extreme in the attacking, but I go back to... the XGs, I think the overall XG this season, I think we are top of the XG table.
Yeah.
And XG against, we're second only to Liverpool. So, it goes back to the old maxim of attack is the best form of defence.
Yeah.
And if you are very good at attacking,
Yeah.
then actually, and hopefully you shouldn't be giving up that many chances.
100%. I think the problem for Spurs is that they can't quite keep the ball high up the pitch quite as well as a properly elite team.
Yeah.
And when they do lose it, they're so open.
But then,
and they do concede.
but then I pull you back to the comment that I literally made just earlier about Glasner. And if you change your philosophy and adapt, then it doesn't breed confidence in the players that this is the way to do it. And if Ange is on a journey and on a path, I think you're right. We're not at the stage of an elite team. But I
setting
suspect
the tone for when he wants to get.
I suspect that's what he aspires to, and so therefore this is the way we're going to play. Yeah. And when we get to be that elite team, just imagine how good we're going to be.
I suppose, absolutely. I suppose the point is that if you're trying to, there's a difference between attacking. Say you're winning, attacking and keeping the ball high up the pitch and not trying to create chances, not losing the ball, and they're
controlling the game a bit.
Yeah, there's a difference between those two things, and maybe Spurs need to just improve that a little bit more so that the ball isn't getting turned over quite so much when they're leading.
Something that I enjoyed hugely under Pochettino was when we scored, we'd score in clusters and go and kill a game. And I mentioned on Monday following the West Ham game, it was one of the first times under Ange where actually we went ahead and didn't then just consolidate. We went and put the game to bed in the next sort of 5-10 minutes. And when you've got the attacking threat that we do and the ability to play the way we do, you can do that. And then after that against West Ham, actually I watched the game back. And we did create more opportunities at 4-1. Obviously, there was the Son that hit the post. But even then, there was still Solanke very nearly could have scored.
Johnson had a shot.
And I actually didn't realise, watching the game live in the stadium, 4-1 could very easily have been 6 or 7, really could have been. But I did also feel that we controlled the game. Somebody said, you had the Udogie off the line, but that was really, really...
They were slinging one into the box.
Yeah, that was really all West Ham did.
The West Ham game, you're completely right. The West Ham game was basically, once Spurs went ahead, it went as well as it possibly could, didn't it?
Yeah.
So in an ideal world, yes, that would be what always happens. You'd go after them and you'd kill the game and you'd keep scoring more and more and more and you'd miss more chances.
You've had some fan mail, Ali. Spot on, Ali. It's our in-possession mistakes that kill us at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Thank you, Robert. I'll send your checks in the post.
It's our in-possession mistakes, but it's also the individual defensive errors that have seen us concede more than... I can only really
mainly
think...
Romero.
Mainly Romero. Yeah, I can only really think of one goal that I hold your hands up and say, that's just a great goal, Brentford. I can't remember the West Ham goal, to be fair. Oh, yeah, kudos. But yeah,
got in round Udogie. Bowen got in round Udogie way too easily.
So.
All right. Are we done?
Predictions?
Yeah, obviously. Thoroughly enjoyed this. A couple of people said we should do more lives.
We have been.
We have been. So we're doing lives after Europa League games. We might be doing a live after Man City next week, if Launchpod Studios is available. I think it is, as I say. Support us here at Launchpod Studios by becoming a member. Get a nice little cockerel like Robert, which is just a great perk to have.
And visit theanalyst.com for more data-led football stuff.
Yeah, well done, Ali. Plug. Absolutely right. Gary, you got anything to plug?
No. Need some hair plugs. Receding.
Gary, your mate Norman Stanley Fletcher's been on. Really great show, lads. Thank you. You're welcome, Norman Stanley Fletcher. Still want to know how you're related to him.
I don't know who Norman is, but he just knows his stuff, doesn't he?
He clearly knows his stuff. Gentlemen, always good to have your cockerel mentioned. I was worried what he'd written there. I started reading it out, but it was work safe. Right, predictions for Crystal Palace against Tottenham Hotspur on Sunday. Ali Tweedale.
3-1 Spurs.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-0. Tottenham.
Yeah. I've got a dilemma. Not really a dilemma. I'm going to a football match on the weekend, which is not Tottenham Hotspur. I'm taking my wife and children to Everton against Fulham, because my wife is a toffee. Travelling back Sunday, and I don't think it's going to be on the radio, which is really annoying. 2-2 draw, says Benny Guy.
So your kids, when they go up to Goodison, are they... where are they sort of on that?
They'll want to win for mummy.
But they're Spurs, right?
They're Spurs. Yeah, they are absolutely Spurs. Daniel was watching, stayed up. He's only 9, but he stayed up and watched the game last night. Oh, yeah. Spurs, but they want Everton to do well. When we play Everton, they want us to win.
Yeah.
Daniel rubbed it in when we won 4-0 earlier in the season. It was hilarious. But I'm really looking forward to going to a game that I don't really care. Going to a proper Premier League game, two big sides, often not big, do you know what I mean?
And it has to be said,
you're not going to be able to follow Spurs at all.
On Sunday in the car on the way home, not
it
really.
won't be on radio.
I don't think it'll be.
Updates. It's the worst way to follow it when it goes down. There's been a goal from Selhurst Park and you're like,
Which one? I'll tell you a story. When we beat Reading 6-4, 7-4,
Oh my God, yeah, I was at that game.
it wasn't on the radio. And I'd done an OB at Sheffield United. I can't remember whoever against. I was coming back and it wasn't on the radio. So I phoned my wife and said, could you put I'm going to phone you, put the phone next to BBC London and just leave it there. So I was listening to this game and it was goal and it was all fine. I could hear it. At this point, it's like 3-2 to them, I think. My signal cut out. So I had to phone back. But because it hadn't cut out, I think it was a landline or whatever, it was just engaged permanently. So I couldn't get through. Eventually, I got back on and it was 7-4 to Spurs. Anyway, not going to do that at the weekend. We might get home in time. Anyway, so there's a long-winded way of saying I'm not sure I'm going to be able to follow the game. But I think nervy draw, says Binny Guy. Nervy win, says Norman. 2-1 Spurs. I think we will win. Believe it or not. I think we have to win. You've got to go to Palace and win, right?
Yeah, we've got to be winning.
All right, gentlemen, last word from Robert, our member. Our form is to beat the bottom half teams. We should be winning this. Yeah,
correct.
You're right.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the live show. It's been really great fun to see all your comments. I loved having you on, Ali, with all your, not just your stats, everything. Great to see you back. Talk of Jake Robson being back on Monday. Cannot confirm. Gary, you'll be with us on Monday?
I believe so.
You believe so. All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you, and up the Spurs.